talking to different folks and doing the homework that I've been able to do, he's very much a details guy, very finer points, teaching fundamentals, teaching technique. We praised all season. Remember how we didn't have nice things to say about the blocking of the Notre Dame tight ends in the first few weeks of the season. We didn't have very nice things to say at all. And Michael Mayer's blocking was especially problematic. But as the year went on, it got better and better and better and better. The route running from the group got better and better and better and better. Michael Mayer decides not to play the bowl game, get ready for the draft. Mitchell Evans steps in with Holden Stace, and all of a sudden, guess what? Tight end play was still clutch. I think Mitchell Evans had 3 catches for 39 yards, something like that. He was open a couple other times. We talked about early in the game where Tyler threw a go route to the outside that was incomplete. I think doing the double coverage. He had Mitchell Evans streaking down the seam to the right for what would have been a big play. So there was opportunities there. I thought the blocking in the bowl game was a lot better, and so that to me is good to see. But he's someone that understands, hey, scheme is great, but we got to teach these kids how to play. Based on several conversations I've had, I do feel confident saying that with Gerad Parker, big picture, we're going to see a little scaled back from a volume, because a playbook is going to be big. It has to be big. When we talk about the volume and scope of an offense, it's not about the playbook. You need answers. You need stuff that you can turn to week after week, and when you have to adjust your offense. What we're referring to is you can only take so much of your offense into a season, and you can only take so much of your offense into a game. And so that's where I come from is, look, I may have 250 different pass concepts that I can use. Now, pass concepts are involved variations of things, different tags. There's all types of things. You may have 25 different things you do with Smash. It has to do with different tags out of different formations. How much of that can I carry week to week? And what is our foundation going to be going into a season? Okay, we're going to run these concepts pretty regularly. This is what we believe in. And then each week you're going to carry extra stuff that fits what you want to do against that particular opponent. And so I think you're going to see them scale back a little bit on the amount of scheme that they're going to take in each game and focus more on fundamentals, technique, toughness, but then also doing a lot of things with motions and shifts and things like that offensively. We may even see the tempo get pushed a little bit more at times. I'm told that Gerad Parker is not a perfect play guy, which means we'll see less of the scan. It's more of, hey, if we're going to teach this concept, and we discussed this a little bit yesterday, if we're going to teach this concept, if they show us a look that isn't favorable for this concept, then we have something to go to within that call. We don't have to change everything every single play. Right. So if we're running, I think this is the example we use, Ryan. If we're running cover 3 and smash into cover 3 and we think it's cover 3, we don't necessarily have to check the play because we have something tagged with it that works against this, that kind of thing. And so those are different concepts or different philosophies I think that we'll see from this offense. But I was told very directly that Gerad Parker believes that an offense has to be built inside out. And when I heard that, I was very happy. And I think you can buy it because, we saw how important blocking was to him as a tight ends coach. And we know that Marcus Freeman wants to be able to run the football. Gerad Parker's not getting promoted if he doesn't believe in running the football. But this is also a guy that played wide receiver in the SEC and has spent most of his career coaching wide receivers. And so I think what we're going to find is there's going to be a nice little blend of, we got to be able to run the football, but we're going to be a more receiver-centric offense as well. We're going to put more on our receivers not from a volume of play standpoint, but we're going to need you guys to make more plays. We're going to involve you more in the things that we're doing. And I think that's going to be a welcome addition certainly for that group and for Chancey Stuckey's group. So I think we're going to see a lot more of the perimeter being attacked this year than we did in 2022. Not because Tom Reese didn't want to. We've discussed this. They just didn't have the personnel to do it at quarterback and at other positions. So they went that direction. So it's going to certainly look a lot different in that regard, Ryan.
Yeah, well, and I think that, the perfect play thing was one of my favorite things that we had kind of discussed, right? It's that you have smart kids at Notre Dame, right? And to the trust that you need to have in that situation where, look, this isn't exactly what we were anticipating going against, but we still have the options to find a hole in it still, right? Like that's the biggest thing for me, man, is that, the scan stuff, again, I get it from an offensive coordinator's perspective because you're trying to find the perfect play. You're trying to find, the right call. I understood why it was a thing, but I really think that it's basically saying that my kids can't adjust sometimes too, right? Like I need to give them the perfect play because they don't know how to do X, Y, and Z when they see A, B, and C, right? And I think that when you talk about the fact that there's more trust in the fact that players can make an adjustment and they can make a decision to beat something that you weren't anticipating. I think that is a great sign. I think that there's a lot of player-driven thought processes through this that I kind of look at and I say, like, there's a deep belief in what the players can do from a mental approach, from a physical approach. So it's going to be interesting to see because it's going to be a little different than what we saw last year, obviously. And I really do like the fact that the identity is not changing, right? There might be a slightly change of emphasis in certain departments, but you're still core. The beliefs that Notre Dame abides by, you need to run the football, man. You need to be strong up the middle, and then you need to create explosive plays off of the run game. Like those things are core essentials and requisites to what is going to be successful at Notre Dame. So I think everything aligns and it all sounds great on paper. Ultimately, you need to see what it looks like on the field. But I do like the core competencies that Gerad Parker brings do seem to match with what Notre Dame has historically been very successful with.
I think some things that we'll see continue a lot, maybe be built upon a little bit, Ryan, is another thing that I was told is from a personnel standpoint, we'll dive into the personnel, that Gerad Parker is an 11 and 12 personnel guy. I think we'll also still see some of the 21 personnel. Nobody makes 21 personnel the way that we refer to 21 personnel, a regular offense. I don't know if it can work necessarily as a regular offense. And when we refer to 21 personnel, we're referring to two tailbacks. So I actually called it 21 speed is what we called it when I was coaching. So 21 meant we're putting two backs, but one of them's a fullback. When we wanted to go, we would go 21 speed. Other people call it lightning, where you're putting two tailbacks in the game. That won't be the base offense, but I do anticipate we will still continue to see that as well. So I think we'll see that. Another thing I was told is it's going to be very, very pro style in its movement pre-snap. We'll see some under center. We'll still see a lot of shotgun. We'll still see balance in that regard. We're going to see a lot of motions and shifts that are designed much like what we saw in the past. So that part won't continue because I think one thing that Tommy Rees did a pretty good job of at times this year, and especially later in the year, Ryan, was when he realized, hey, we can't throw the football, or at least, or when he decided they weren't going to throw the football, I should say, he got real creative at times with how they used motions and shifts in the run game. And the Clemson game to me was a clinic on how to use motions and shifts and personnel to add extra gaps into your run game and really go after a team that's even trying to play the run. It was an absolute clinic. Now, we didn't always see that, but when he was on, it was on. And I think we'll still see a lot of that. We'll still see a lot of movement, and not every single play, but we're going to see shifts from tight ends, motions. I think that, when you're a coach who likes to use RPOs, it's another aspect of this offense, is we're going to see a lot more RPO from this offense relative to last year. Doesn't mean they're going to run an RPO, tag an RPO with every single play, right? So like, Ryan, if I'm running an outside zone, I don't want to run an RPO to that side. I need the receivers to that side blocking. I may tag an RPO backside and just pull and throw a quick hitch or a quick out, but I need guys blocking. I need my slot receiver a lot of times heading downfield to cut off that deep safety in case we do get a vertical crease, right? So there's some concepts you don't necessarily want to have everybody running RPOs with. Counters are another one of those. I don't want to run a RPO to the counter side. I'll run one backside, but I can't run it to the counter side. So I'm not one of those people that's like just tagging an RPO with everything, but we're going to see a lot more usage of the RPO from week to week than we have in the past. That is something I'm quite confident in, and what we're going to see, Ryan. And I think it's going to look a little different. I mean, we'll see some of the Sark stuff. We'll see the bubbles. We'll see the nows. We're going to see some, but we're going to see them run true RPOs, Ryan, like true pro style RPOs, which means throwing off second level defenders vertically, not just for the looks and the bubbles, the nows and the bubbles. It's not just going to be that. It's not just going to be banging a quick, open boundary window opening versus soft corner, bang the hitch, bang the quick out. We'll see some of that, but we're going to see some true downfield, like, second level defender RPO reads this year, I believe, as well. And I think having a quarterback like Sam Hartman is important. But the other thing too is Tyler Buckner has to be in an RPO offense, in my opinion. Like, his game is limited if he's not in an RPO offense, because he brings such a running threat to the table. So whether you've got a veteran, smart quarterback like Sam Hartman or a dual threat guy like Tyler Buckner, the RPO game is a tremendous benefit to quarterbacks. It's going to create more efficiency. It's going to create better, I think, first and second down efficiency, especially, Ryan. It's going to make it very harder for teams to really load the box up if they can really, truly develop a good, effective, not overly complex, because you don't want too much thinking. That's how turnovers happen. But a much more detailed RPO system is going to really be a benefit to the run game and not put as much on the line to have to block 7, 8, 9 guys every time like we saw last year. If they ran RPOs effectively against Stanford, they'd have won by 3 touchdowns, because Stanford was just crowding the box. And so I think that's going to be an important part to this too. That's going to really help the quarterbacks, but it's going to really help the run game a lot, Ryan.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm thinking it from a linebacker perspective for a second, right? I hate RPOs, man. I hate RPOs. I hate motion, and I hate shifts. I hate all those things. Why do we do that, folks? Why do we do all that stuff? It's to make linebackers look stupid. It makes second-level defenders wrong. That's why you're running RPOs. That's why you're running trades. That's why you're motioning across. It's eye candy. That's all it is for linebackers, right? You're trying to make them guess wrong. You're trying to make them overreact to a movement. That's what RPOs, and that's what those motions and pre-snap movement, that's what it dictates. And you're trying to get a linebacker out of position, whether it's in the run or the pass game. So I respect it, man. I respect it, though, from an offensive perspective, because how the game is played today, man, where you're trying to just get guys in space so easily and manufacture space, make those dumb linebackers look stupid. I mean, honestly, like, as a former dumb linebacker, make them look stupid, make them guess wrong, and throw it where they ain't. That's basically where it comes down to, man.
Right.
Make the game easy. That's what RPOs are built off of. That's what motion's built off of. It's making the game easy. You're trying to make the opposition guess wrong. And when they guess wrong, you take advantage of them. So I love it. We wanted more of that this year. We wanted more of that. We got more motion, like you said, down the stretch of the season. That was great. Got some more trading down the end of the season. That's great. We never got the RPOs enough, though. Never got enough of that.
Yeah.
Not enough. There was some, but there was not enough, in my opinion. So those things make the game easier for your offense. It makes quarterback reads easier. It makes running back reads through the first to second level easier. Make the game easy. That's what it's predicated on.
The benefit to RPO, I love how you brought it up from a defensive player standpoint, Ryan. Like, you hate it because you're always having to think. You're always having to move. You're always having to, okay, am I going here? Am I going there? Anytime you can create indecision or even a split second of indecision in a defensive player, it gives me a chance to hurt you bad. What it also does, Ryan, as an offense, is it makes it very hard for you to out leverage us or to have leverage with us and to have numbers in the box. It's very hard to do both. You have to have great talent at that point in time. But the RPO game, especially if you're running it effectively, where you're running it for width and you can throw behind it, because if it's just width, if you're just running nows and bubbles, you can have guys fly downhill and try to blow that stuff up. And if you have a cornerback like Cam Hart, like Clemson learned this. Clemson runs a lot of RPOs. And they tried to RPO Notre Dame to death in that game. And Cam Hart and Benjamin Morris, and especially Cam Hart, he was great in this area. But they were just coming up and blowing it up. And just like, there's nothing they could do about it. My guys are just better than your guys. And it forced him to throw the ball down the field. And DJ's just not a real accurate player throwing the ball down the field. What made Alabama's RPO so hard to defend in 2020, beyond just they had great players, was they were hurting Notre Dame with the perimeter stuff, the now screens and getting the leverage. But then once Notre Dame would start out leveraging this way, they're throwing those glance routes kind of back inside off an RPO. And so you're starting to think, okay, we're going to defend the run game this way with our box and our safeties, and then we're going to defend the RPOs this way with our rover and our corners. But which it works actually really well if you're a team that's just a perimeter oriented. You're just banging outs, bubbles, and now screens, right? But if you're a team that's running RPOs where you're throwing maybe glances or slants, or you're able to even willing maybe take a. I've seen some teams bang some quick posts. Notre Dame did that a little bit in 2017, Ryan, if you remember, is they would run their inside zone, and if that back safety came downside, Brandon Wimbush would pull it and just bang it. Some people call it a quick post, deep slant, same concept. It's not a full post. It's not as deep as a regular post. It's not as quick as a slant. Some people teach their glance bases. Sometimes that's just an extension of the glance. You've got to get behind that safety with your depth. And so, but we've seen that before. So I think when you do that, Ryan, it makes it a lot harder to come here with your run game and there with your RPO defense. And I think those are the things that RPOs do. It takes work. It's not something you can just do. You can just put in a week and you're banging RPOs. It's something that takes work, and it's something that has to be a part of who you are from day one.
Sure.
You have to work on it from day one. The quarterbacks need reads on it day one. The receivers need work on it day one. And I think when you get to that, it's a really great asset. Really great asset.
Are you dreaming of Tobias Merriweather and Deion Coles on like those glance RPOs, man?
Yeah.
Just working down the seam.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And also like getting Lorenzo some touches in space. Yep. I think especially depending on some looks, just kind of banging those little quick. I mean, it's almost like a hot pass to tight ends and Jaden Thomas. Yeah. And then doing stuff out of 21 personnel where you're throwing now screens out there to Chris Tyree. So there's a lot of things you can do with it that if you coach it right and you really work on it like you work on everything else, it's got to be a staple of who you are. You have RPO drills every day. You have RPOs built into every team period, run period that you do. Then, yeah, I think those things can be a big part of what you do offensively and really can help take this Notre Dame offense to another level. So I do expect that to be more a part of what we're going to do. Pass game wise, Ryan, specific concepts. I don't think that what they're going to do schematically is going to change a ton in the pass game. I think what we're going to see is more play action from the gun and under center. And part of that's RPO. Now, a lot of times people say, well, that was an RPO play. No, it wasn't. That was a play action. You can tell by the way the line's blocking. And I think you have to have both. You can't just – I think there's a belief with some that you don't really need RPO or you don't really need play action if you have RPOs. I don't agree with that. I think you also need play action to go with that as well, especially the play action allows you to attack it even further down the field. I think we'll see some of that. Obviously, the tight end pass game is going to be a big part of it. But I don't think the schemes are going to change a ton. And I don't know if I'm comfortable enough to get into the wrinkles that they're going to do in the pass game at this point. I need to let Coach Gaduli and Coach Parker kind of get together and let's see what they do in the spring. But in a lot of ways, Ryan, the schemes aren't going to change a ton. The concepts aren't going to change a ton. I think we'll just see a little bit more movement from the quarterback, a little bit more play action from the quarterback than maybe we saw this past season, like true play action, not just like the flash fake to try to. Because sometimes you'll call play. I've seen people say, "Why do they run play action on 3rd and 15?" Well, it's not real play action. It's just they need the scheme that they need blocking wise. They can only get to with this play action call. So you'll see like just a little. It's just kind of force the habit of the quarterback, and then he runs it because that's just kind of what they need to do to get there. So you'll see that at times too. But from teams, I don't know if like we'll see that from Notre Dame. But I think that pass game wise, that's one thing I'm really much looking forward to seeing, Ryan, is kind of what are some of the concepts they really want to harp on. Do they like, here's the thing. I want to see more quick game. Now, the reason you couldn't run a lot of quick game last year, Ryan, is because people were just coming up and pressing all game. And there was no quick game. Weren't a ton of quick game opportunities last year. So I want to see more quick game, but that can only come by being able to beat teams down the field. That's going to be a big part. This team is going to have to establish the ability to throw the ball down the field. Now, how's Gerad Parker going to get there? That I don't know. That I don't have an answer for. But we'll have to find out. But that's going to be a key.
Yep.
Let's talk run game, Ryan. This is an area where I feel a lot more confident in knowing what Gerad Parker likes to do. So the concepts, Ryan, are not going to change in the run game. We're going to see inside zone. We're going to see outside zone. We're going to see counter. We're going to see duo. And we're going to see some draws, right? So the emphasis, I think, is going to change. I think we're going to see inside zone be used a little bit more than it was this year. You and I talked a lot last year, Ryan. If you as a coach can effectively use inside zone and duo together, that makes your run game really hard to stop. Because duo, you're playing vertical to the bounce, right?
Yep.
Inside zone, you're playing vertical insertion to the cutback. And in a lot of ways, Ryan, there's similarities to what it does, but it really impacts the defense differently. And we saw it last year that when in the games where Tommy Rees used both of those concepts, the run game was really hard to stop. And we saw that in a great example is the bowl game. Duo, they used duo and inside zone. Duo didn't work a ton, Ryan, because South Carolina was playing it. But when they ran inside zone, which is looks a lot like duo from a running back standpoint, the first run, I mean, Chris Tyree was cutting it back. Audric was cutting it back. They started bouncing. And then all of a sudden later in the game, duo starts working a lot more now. I think the touchdown run to Logan Diggs, I believe, was an inside zone run, split zone run, if I remember correctly, Ryan. So they mixed it up a lot more effectively. You had counters in that game. I think we'll see a game plan that looks a lot more like that than what we saw most of the season. And I also think that we're going to see from conversations I had yesterday, we're going to see that I think this staff understands and Gerad Parker understands we can't just be a tackle-to-tackle run game. We have to be able to attack the perimeter with our run game as well. And so I think we'll see them try to get back to running more stretch, outside zone type of stuff as well, as long with inside zone and stretch is outside zone. But inside zone, duo, counter, and outside zone, along with some draw stuff, I think is really going to be the meat and potatoes of what the run game is going to be. So I think we're going to see a lot more balance in that regard, Ryan, which I know you and I are, if that comes to fruition, are going to be very happy dudes.
I mean, how many weeks in a row did we talk about diversity, right? Diversifying the run game a little bit. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And it just makes so much sense, man, because like everything has a counter off of it, right? And to your point, and it's 100%, is that, again, I'm thinking about it from a defensive perspective. If I'm a linebacker or a safety coming down and I'm looking at the line, right? What's the line doing? Well, to the naked eye, duo and zone look very similar from those steps, right? Like there's a different foundation on the backside comparative, right? But you're looking at it, you're like, okay, that looks like a zone step to me, right? Like I'm watching, the running zone. But then all of a sudden, because if I'm a linebacker or a safety, most people read the line to the running back, right? They don't usually just read flow anymore because that's kind of dumb, right? They let the offensive lineman show where they're going to. And if that case, I'm not really focusing on the track of the running back, right? Are they getting a little more downhill? Are they taking a little bit more of a 45-degree step out of their stance? I'm not really looking at that. I'm looking at the line, and then I'm reacting based upon what it looks like. Well, if I'm reading something and I'm not sure if it's zone or if it's duo, then the bounce or the progression of that run, the track completely changes. So now instead of staying firm backside as a weak side linebacker, maybe waiting for a zone, then all of a sudden it hits front side as based upon a duo run. And you're just like, I'm out of position, right? You're getting guys out of position and you're making yourself less predictable. That was my biggest, I want to pick the word right. That was my biggest annoyance off of the 2022 season, was that the run game at times got incredibly predictable, man. Incredibly predictable. And again, you're making the defense, you're making it easier for them. Why am I making it easy for those guys? I want them to be confused. I want to get them out of position. I don't want to make it easy for them. I don't want them to know I'm running duo right now. I don't want them to know I'm running inside zone, outside zone, whatever it is. I want to make them pick wrong. And when they do, that's when you get out leveraged. That's when you give up a gap. That's when you're not patient enough on the backside, and then inside zone breaks back to the backside A, backside B, and then he's out the gate, right? That's when that stuff happens. So diversity to run game, please. I will clap every single game. Please give me more diversity, because you have the dudes. You have Audric Estime. You have Logan Diggs. You have Chris Tyree. Different skill sets. Let's use those different skill sets more appropriately. That's what I don't think we saw enough in 2022.
And we saw that in the inconsistency of the results, Ryan. I mean, when teams could get a read on duo, there was not a lot of answers because you didn't have a quarterback that could hurt teams. So it was one of the frustrations is, you'd see a game like Clemson and you're just absolutely obliterating one of the best front sevens in college football. And there's not a dang thing they can do about it. And then you got the very next week and you can't run on Navy. And it was just like, because Navy had answers for duo and there was nothing. I mean, there was, Ryan, there were so many things, quick pitch outside. I mean, there were so many different things they could have done to hurt Nate, what Navy was doing, and they just chose not to do it. Now, there were some things they did pass game second half that if the quarterback gets the ball out, that stuff would have worked. I mean, we've said that. But it's just like the fact that you can't get your run game going against Navy. And yes, I get the Navy had a good run defense and all, but you should run for 69 yards against Navy. I don't care how good their run defense is. It's flipping Navy. And that was kind of the thing that would just get to me at times last year, was just like, man, when it was on, boy, it was a thing of beauty. But when it wasn't, or teams had answers for it, like USC just said, we're going to load the box and make you beat us throwing the football. And Notre Dame didn't have enough answers for it.
Brian, I mean, just comparing two games, you cannot run for 260 against Clemson and then run for 69 against Navy. You can't have that wide of a gap, man. You just can't. That can't be. That can't be. No. I think that's like a microcosm of the issues for the offense, right? You're right. When it was really good, it was really good, man. When it was bad, though, it was very bad. And that's, you just can't have that too much of a gap in that type of performance.
Yep. So, Ryan, I think when we look at the run game, that's obviously where I feel Notre Dame is now. I think what that is going to allow us to do is to say we can start, when we hear a name about an offensive line coach, he needs to have that kind of background, in my opinion. So if you hear an offensive line coach, he's been an air raid pin and pull guy his whole career, that's not going to be the guy, right? That's not a bad thing. I mean, Bill Bedenball's been a pin and pull guy most of his career, and he's excellent at it, right? It's just, that's just not the scheme fit for Notre Dame. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from on that. So I feel like we have a pretty good idea, at least from a foundational standpoint, what a Gerad Parker offense is going to be. And I think those are things that I mean, again, they're going to be foundational things. Now they have to say, okay, what are the particulars going to look like? And those are some things we really won't know until we get to the fall. Yes. Now we'll see the foundational pass concepts more this spring. We'll see some of that stuff. But as far as, okay, the spring is always where you should lay the foundation. And I've never liked coaches that just say, hey, we're getting everything in the spring. Why? Get your foundation in. Teach kids how to play the game. Get your foundational concepts and fundamentals and work in. And then you get a feel for what you have talent-wise. And then you spend this offseason, this summer, late spring and early summer period, saying, okay, well, now we're gonna tailor these things to that. We've got our foundation laid. Now we're going to tailor to some things that we think can really work with these guys and the unique talent that we have. And so I think that's what I'm hoping to see from them this spring. So we'll see a foundation laid this spring, and then, of course, we'll see it built upon in the fall. So it's going to be a learning process for all of us as far as some of the specifics of what they do. We can tell you we're going to see inside zone, outside zone, a.k.a. stretch. So for me, Ryan, when I say outside zone and stretch is two different things, for me it is, but it's the same blocking concept. When I talk outside zone, it's more of a perpendicular, or I say parallel handoff.
Parallel. Yeah.
So where it's like, I'm in the shotgun and I got a back next to me and we're going here. The blocking's the same, but he's working, sort of parallel to the line until he gets his insertion point. Think Denver Broncos with Terrell Davis. They would do that a ton off toss.
Wide zone.
Yeah. Yep. And they would do it off toss, and Terrell would just kind of work laterally until he saw us cutting, and bam, he'd hit his cut. Stretch is more of a 45-degree downhill run, same blocking scheme. The running back is going to kind of track it a little bit differently off of that. Where outside zone, he's kind of looking for an insertion point to bounce. He's thinking, stretch. Bam, I got my vertical point. The stretch is more of a get on the inside hip of that tight end, if that's whatever the aiming point is. That's what we taught, Ryan. Other people teach outside hip of the tackle. I mean, people teach it differently. I was an inside hip of the tight end guy. But if you're going to get on the inside hip of the tight end, you stay on that path until you're ready to make your move. And so it's same blocking scheme. It's just the technique is different for the back, and how you influence the defense is different. So I always called it kind of two different things so people could understand it. It's still outside zone. And really the only difference was for the running back was, if you're in gun, you're working parallel. If it's pistol or under center, you're working downhill. I mean, you didn't even have to tag it. Some people will tag it. We never did. It was just, you knew from where the quarterback was. If you're under center, this is what we're doing. If you're in offset, this is what we're doing. and then it was up to us to call it to get the look that we wanted. But so it's not technically two plays; it's one play. It just attacks it differently. So inside zone, outside zone, counter, duo is what we're going to see. What we don't know is what are the looks that they're going to like to run those out of. Is it 11? What do they like to run out of 11? What do they like to run out of 12? Those things I don't know. Do they like to run to open side? Do they like to run to close side? Are they an inside zone to the wide technique or an inside zone to the tight technique? Those are all answers that I don't have right now. And we won't really have those till we get to the fall. But we at least have a foundation of, okay, this is the concepts run game wise that I think we're going to see. This is the philosophy that I think we're going to see in regard to the balance of the run game. And I think that's a positive, something I'm encouraged by. And I've come to develop a great appreciation for duo over the last year, Ryan. But it's like anything, any good thing can be, overused, and it has to have balance.
Too much.